Wow, good morning. Good. Jason, later I want to hear the whole story again about the... I was trying to comprehend at that moment. You two are a good team. That was wonderful. Yeah. And thank you, Pat, for that meditation. And I want to thank everyone. Rebecca, your part in this, everyone. Someone told me now, I got this word, I think it trickled down. I can't remember who started it. I think it was Janet back there. But that if I made a good point, since this was Super Bowl Sunday, they were going to pour a Gatorade on me. I'm going to be very careful not to make a good point. Title of this message is No Greater Love. Do you know who started a sentence with that expression? No, Jesus. Yeah, from like the Gospel of John. Here's what it says. My commandment is this, love each other as I have loved you. And then here is the phrase, greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. Now, the more I've read that, the more I realize that it doesn't really mean that you need to die if necessary for your friends. I mean, you know. But here's another, I mentioned the message. Well, there are people who have done that. But from the message, listen to it, and I think it has a little broader meaning. This is the very best way to love. Put your life on the line for your friends. Do you know that this is really trying to describe unconditional word? I mean, love. But the word unconditional, I don't know, you can check me out and read the Bible through. But that word, unconditional, isn't used in the Bible for some reason. I'm curious about that. I didn't read through again just to find that out. I looked in my concordance, which talks about every word that's used in the Bible, you know.
But neither is the word
What?
conditional.
What?
Neither is the word conditional.
Conditional. Well, now that I don't know. I'll have to go check.
Perhaps you're right.
Perhaps you're right.
Secret of a long marriage.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. My favorite saying is, I'm wrong about that. You're absolutely right. That's my most used expression. There's a little wisdom here, isn't there? Okay. The Apostle John, and he was writing from the words of Jesus, but he wrote the Gospel of John, of course. But an interesting thing about that gospel concerning love itself is there are several times in that book of the Bible, the New Testament, that he refers to himself as that apostle which Jesus loved. Now, isn't that funny? Because there's no one else, and I've checked to see. Now, this time I didn't go to the concordance. I did ask Pat, but I read to look to see if any other writer used that expression concerning John, referring to him as that apostle that Jesus loved. Only he saw it that way. Now, let me just tell you this. If you feel loved This overpowers everything else. It wouldn't matter what somebody else's opinion was, and this is what he felt. And of course, the outcome of feeling, it's really like God's love. That's what we're feeling. We're actually like conduits of the love of God. Let me read another couple of scriptures to you. He later wrote, this is John, and this is it from the epistle, 1 John, the 4th chapter. A couple of things that he wrote from this I don't want to read. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in him. Then he wrote, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. Now, there can be all of that love out there, but it's made complete in you and me. This is where there is that completion of this love, because we are the ones right here who express it. Now, it's like health and prosperity. In fact, it's part of all of these things, but there's a universe full of it. There is a universe full, and we call it God's love. And fair enough, God's love. But when I think of it is all of the energy of the universe is such that there are all of the good qualities that we need in life, which a life filled with love this is a better life, isn't it? And it's not always starting out with who loves you. It's feeling loved within ourselves when we actually realize that God is love and that the universe is filled with love, and our part is mostly opening the door to that and then expressing it. It's like anything else. Jesus talks about giving, and he says, give and you'll receive. And then concerning forgiveness, right under that, and this is a scripture in Luke, he says, forgive and you'll be forgiven. It's like it's part of one thing. Receiving and giving, okay, it's the same thing about love. The more we feel this inner expression of God's love and let it flow out from us, the more things we attract to us that are filled with love. Why God designed it that way, I don't know. But I think that many of you are already experiencing just this very thing that I'm talking about, that if we send love out, that it connects someplace. How? I won't try to explain. It's simply that we are giving and receiving of God's gifts. And a lot of people, and I worry about this, I watch a lot of old movies, and I've noticed in these that love seems to be like a peculiar thing, that a lot of them ended so sadly that it's nearly you nearly want to give up, because I think that so many of them were made during the Depression, of the ones that I'm talking about, that sense of things aren't right, But what people don't realize, that when we begin to do things right within ourselves, using all of God's gifts, it flows out and impacts what's happening to us next. That's what's really, I think, because it took me 50 years to grasp this, I think everybody else is slow, which isn't the truth. That's not the truth. I visited yesterday with my new granddaughter, not too new, but a year old now. That was her birthday. Yesterday was her birthday. And so in those eyes, which seem to just look all the way through you into your soul, I'm talking about a 1-year-old. I could feel so much love. It's just like when this kid grasped me and hugged me. What an experience. You can feel it. It's a natural thing, isn't it? Little kids come into this world and there is that exchange of love. Can't wait till she starts talking. Of course, I said that about my 3-year-old grandson, and now I'm wondering if occasionally he would stop. Okay. The test about our love, I'm going to tell you when it comes. When we run into a situation like we have an employer who isn't fair at all, who's just totally unreasonable, it is so hard then to realize this. When we have a customer that's absolutely obnoxious, then it's really hard to send this love out, isn't it? It sort of grips us for a moment. I'm learning. I'm in the process of learning. But sometimes it takes me a minute to recoup from it. You see what I'm saying? And then say, uh-oh, that was the wrong reaction that I had to that. Okay, let's look at it some more here. Or then if in our relationship, for some reason, partners begin to clash on ideas of how things ought to be, this is another test. But this is a test that if we begin thinking that God is love and God is expressing to us, and it's a gift. It's a gift. It's not like a burden to send love out from us, but it is a gift. Okay, then that begins at least to start us in the right direction. It's not that being perfect, I think that would be annoying. If say you live with someone who is perfect, would that be annoying? Someone who was never wrong. Pat and I take turns, so we've got that down pretty good. Here's what I want you to have as just a rule of thumb. Whenever a problem or trouble or a person shows up and it hits you wrong, remember this, that no one can be in your life unless something within you has drawn them there. So here's what I've learned to say. Now, this was very hard. All of you nearly know that I'm trying to fix up a house and resell it or live in it or something or other. But the day that I had an inspector come out, and he didn't like anything I'd done, and he said to me, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said, "Well, I got started in 1953 with Fox and Jacob, and I've been doing it ever since." He said, "Oh." But I had to go home and write out on paper, I've still got it, I look at it every once in a while, how much I appreciated this man coming out and doing what he believed with his job, and I believed that and I wrote this down, and I know he was a messenger from God. That nearly broke my finger to write that. Well, so if someone blocks your pathway, someone is standing in the way, remember that, a messenger from God, which will simply mean that if your pathway is blocked, it's time to look to see if there could be another pathway. If the doors have closed, there might be another door getting ready to open that makes everything better than you ever knew. I've had this happen. I know that this is in its potential, but when you believe in things, when you believe that you're never going to be blocked. Okay, let me get on to the next thing. When someone comes along and it appears that they want to destroy you, This simply means that they're trying to show you that you're indestructible. Think about that. Don't pour any Gatorade on me now. But that is the truth. That's really what the lesson is there, because there's always a lesson in whatever's happening. Now, the teachings of Jesus were meant to give us a way of life that makes life work at the highest level. That's why he's talking about love. He's trying to say, here is a way that will change everything, that you learn how to love your neighbors yourself, how to even love your enemy, love those who are blocking your pathway, love those who are inspecting your house. All of those. The scripture says, look, this is Ephesians 5:1. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love. Live a life of love. This sort of laps over to where you begin to love every day, no matter what's happening. But as you love every day, the thing you're going to discover as time goes on, that every day gets better and better. I don't know why it does, but there's something about loving the day that you're in, loving the moment you're in, not trying to rush through it, not trying to wish for some other day, but simply focusing upon that day. I've got another little thing written down. Boy, I mean, I do a lot of writing. You should see some of the yellow pads at my home. But it's, today is a celebration. And I'll tell you what, it may be because I have fewer left than some of you young guys, but they seem more precious every day, that there's going to be something wonderful. But as I use this thing that God has given me, trying to overwhelm me with love, if I let some of that out and it isn't always in what you say, it's what you're feeling. I mean, it's just like this, a person who's managed, he's the president of the board of trustees for the Homeowners Association, and I do a lot of work over there the last 6 years. I would like to just walk up to him one day and say, Bobby, I love you. You know, I haven't said that, but because, you know, sometimes guys, you know, they might not like that. I haven't said that to anybody over there that I remember, but I feel it. I said, you know what? And I did tell him one day, he was talking about how that since he does things to people who are in a bad economy, usually, in other words, he gives them loans and things like that. And the economy has gotten better, and so it's been tough on his business. And he says, now I don't want the thing to get bad just so I can make more money with these tax loans. But I said to him this, I want you to prosper, but I don't want you to just prosper. I want you to be stinking rich. And he reacted a little bit. I said, that's true. I said, that's my prayer for you, that you do so well that you're just overwhelmed with all the success. And he is a wonderful, wonderful person and a terrific businessman, so I feel like I'm well-directed in saying it. Okay, I get off on a thought, but let's get back to the thought. Be imitators of God and live in love. Now, what does this do for you? I guarantee you that if you are catching on to the idea that I'm expressing here, that you're going to have better health. If you get over some of the things that impede, and I'll name some of those in a minute, but impede the love that you're sending out, I believe it comes back in your body. I believe it does. I think resentment and all of these things, your body isn't intended for this. This is what Jesus is teaching. He said, no greater love than this, that you extend your life, that you lay it on the line for your friends. And Everybody's supposed to be your friend. So there you go. And you're sending out love. No greater love than this could possibly be, he's saying. Okay, now, for better health, for a more exciting life, for a more productive life, for a more prosperous life, for a more joyous life. All of these things go into it. And then he said, and this is the capper on this thing, but he said, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for them who persecute you. Now, when God's love is flowing through us, we are empowered. And not just to face reality, but let me tell you what, create reality. This is what you're doing when you're taking these ideas that it's the universe is telling us. The universe is telling us these ideas through Jesus. You'll know there's something within you when it's wrong that will tell you it's wrong. But these ideas that you're hearing today, these are right. But then we are not just like victims of reality or situations, but we are creating. This love is creating our own reality. Some of the impediments: anxiety, possessiveness. None of you ever heard of these things. Needs to control, defensiveness. And listen to this one, because I run across this a lot. Neediness. Neediness creates just one thing: more neediness. Have you ever heard of Leo Buscaglia? He wrote a lot about love, but one of the things he said that it just always stuck with me, and this was many years ago I read this, but I never will forget it. But he says, nothing will ever seem like enough until you are enough. And this is the way, until we are exuding love, we may not feel the kind of love that we want within us. But it doesn't matter. Just do what we're supposed to do, and the rest comes naturally. Now, to resist God's love, it takes a lot of energy. People who are going around not feeling loved, they've gone to a lot of trouble to create that situation. I mean, I think it takes years to create a life where love isn't felt. And it's something that we don't realize, that like embracing the ideas, like these ideas, these Christian ideas, that this creates in the long run the life that we experience. I'm going to leave you with an idea, and it's the last little thought that I want to leave you with. The universe is filled with knowing, with thinking, with planning, with organizing. But I'm going to tell you one other thing about the universe, and you can take this home with you, and maybe you won't believe it, or maybe you will. But I'm going to tell you, the whole universe is madly in love with you. Think about that. I think I dropped something else too.